We are live. We are live. Okay, so welcome everybody from all over the world. Welcome to our embodied audience and our disembodied audience. I was just asked. That's me. I can hear my voice. We have echoes.
Technical inconvenience?
You know, the glitch is part of the project. It's all about the non-finishedness, the openness, the mistakeness.
Inconvenience is not part of our vocabulary.
No, we want to embrace the glitch. This is what the media theory kids would say. And you were asking before how many people are watching us all over the planet. Uncountable. I would say they are part of the uncountable. And today... well,
9
9
millions?
9 billions?
Let's push for the double figures, guys. Just one more. Maybe somebody could log on from the back of the room.
We should do like some of those streamers. Like if we get to 10 viewers, I make a dance, something like that. You know?
Okay, let's do that though.
No,
now
no,
you
no,
said
no,
it,
please, no, not
and
me at
we're
least.
gonna make. You will make a good dance. Also,
I'll do a little hand jive, maybe.
I was abandoned by my co-host and my guest, so maybe they are connected. Michael, Dieter, and Alfie Bown were supposed to be here, but they couldn't for different reasons. So fortunately, there's Chris. Chris, how do you feel being my plan B?
I've always enjoyed being your plan B, and I hope that I can step into Michael's shoes and I can misrepresent him.
Yes, that's pretty much the goal of today. So I feel quite in a familiar place here because it's a sort of a CMPS crowd today, and I would like to sort of. I would really be happy if this could be like a collective discussion. We don't have the expert today. I mean, Francesco is quite an expert, but we don't have...
about to get offended.
No, I love you and you know it, but we don't have the sort of the special guest coming from very far away that we have to say, oh, please
Just
tell
me.
me everything. That's just Chris. And we'll see each other again. And also the topic, artificial intimacies, about how we relate to our machines, especially in a time of AI, is not a topic that we had as a scholarly community, is not a topic that we had a lot of time to study. So it's difficult to be an expert of something that in its current form just started. So I would like to blur as much as possible the barrier between us that we are here with the microphones and you that you are there, whether as an embodied or disembodied audience. So let's try to think about it together and possibly we have a good time. And for some reason, I feel a little anxious today. So I'm gonna, it's true, I never feel like that.
Maybe it's a topic, I don't know.
You need your sunglasses.
So I'm gonna hide it with my sunglasses. So now I hope I just look cool and not anxious at all. And reclining, let me introduce you to our wonderful guests. We have Chris Bilton, the usual Chris Bilton, host and co-host of the podcast Media Whatever, and my favorite colleague in the whole world. Then, vedi, people crying in the audience because there's so much love going on here. So much non-artificial intimacy.
Yeah, they're a bit upset
And
now.
then, all the way from Copenhagen, we have Erinne. How do we pronounce your surname?
Paisley.
Paisley.
Yeah.
Erinne has just come. When did you arrive? Yesterday?
2 days ago.
2 days ago. 2 days ago. And Erinne comes from Copenhagen, where she's doing a PhD on dating apps.
Exactly. Yeah. Women's experiences of dating apps.
Women's experience of dating apps. And I studied dating apps for quite a while, and it is while studying dating apps that I started thinking, maybe the real intimacy here, the real seduction, erotic connection even, is not happening by means of the dating app between two humans, but it is actually the dating app itself that is the object of love, that it is in the place of the lover, of the seducer. So for me, thinking about artificial intimacy started with the app, with the dating app. And then we have Francesco Barchiesi from Birmingham, so quite
Not
local.
really from Birmingham.
Scusami, from Le Marche.
Iesi,
From
Iesi, which is
Iesi.
a vibrant small town in central Italy. I've been living in Bologna for the last 10 years, which is most...
So you don't identify as a Birmingham citizen yet?
Not yet. I mean,
Not
I moved
yet.
in September, so there's time. There's time.
Keith lives in Birmingham. Keith Broomfield is our wizard, the one thanks to which this is possible. Otherwise, if it was for me, there would only be sunglasses and beers and nothing else would be in place. And Francesco has been studying masculinity cultures and incels, and now he's doing a PhD on the de-radicalization of incels. Let's hope it's not only wishful thinking. And but you also published an article that is where I got the idea of, okay, let's organize a discussion. And this article is titled Lobotics and Something Else. And it talks about artificial intimacies.
Okay.
Right?
It's true.
Is it
It's
true?
true. It's true. I'm not studying, like I research broadly on digital intimacies because I think that the manosphere and incel culture broadly can be part of digital intimacy as a label. But never been studying dating apps. I've been using dating apps, so I have an ethnographic background, let's say.
Autoethnographic.
We are totally
Autoethnographic.
interested in your autoethnographic
No, please,
background
don't
of
let
dating
me-
apps.
don't
I
let me
want to know
delve into it.
everything.
I would like to start from consideration about the title itself, like artificial intimacy.
See, you don't agree with the term, I know.
No, I mean it's not my it's not something that I care so much about, to be fair. But in my long form in Lobotics, I advanced that I prefer the definition of synthetic intimacy, because I think that artificial intimacy carry with itself like a sense of passivity of the user, like if intimacy is something made up by the machine and the user is passively involved in it.
Okay.
While I think that the cool thing about like AI intimacy and AI companion platforms or the involvement of AI in dating apps is that intimacy is co-constructed. Like it's part of a cooperation between the machine and the user. If we start from the definition of intimacy itself, I would say that it's something that presupposes a vulnerability, and intimate is something that it's at the core, I'd say. So it's not upfront, it's not on the armor, on the most external part, and something that we allow ourselves, others, to get in touch with. And that's something that is going on with the use of AI, in the case of AI companionship. Like we disclose ourselves to the machine. And the machine plays a big part in our disclosure, in channeling what to say, how to say it. Because the machine has an agency. It reacts to our disclosure. So the intimacy in the space of the interaction between the human and the machine is a cooperation, is product of a cooperation.
So when we talk
Synthetic.
about synthetic intimacy,
But who cares? I mean, artificial intimacy is super
no, but now it's going to be synthetic intimacy, or we can vote. But anyway, we can think of like the most, well, in a way, maybe extreme, I don't know if extreme is the right word, is when people are in relationships with AI chatbots or with AI avatar like replica. So there is a whole and growing, I would say, trend or practice of establishing romantic or erotic relationship with machines. But on the other hand, and at the same time, because when you say something like that, the immediate reaction is or might be, what the fuck, you know? What are
Most
these?
of the
That's
time,
what I was
so
going to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So-
my role. I should say what the fuck every now and then. Yeah. Carry on.
So, Chris, what do you think of people that are in relationship with chatbots?
What the fuck?
What do I think? What the fuck? Well, I suppose that it's I mean, all my reference points are non-academic for this discussion, but films and TV shows, it's the tendency for the machine to be treated as inferior, which I guess is always a thing in relationships anyway. But the way that you talk to a machine, I'm thinking of the way that she talks to not machines but to the artificial intelligence in pluribus, and she just says, "Shut up, get out of my way, give me this now." It's not really an intimacy. It's a kind of very mechanical, transactional, autoerotic kind of relationship, maybe. But
Okay, you jumped already at the argument, so you think much more than what the fuck. But
sorry, I went beyond my brief then. Sorry, rewind, delete that. Just what the fuck? Carry on.
no, but you're right. There's a power dynamic, and we'll explore that because I think both of you have quite a clear, reflection on that. But going one step back, don't you think we are all already in an intimate relationship with machines, even without, having an AI chatbot companion or partner? I mean, what happens if you lost your phone? If you lost your phone, you freak out. The first thing, human or non-human thing, that I touch in the morning is probably the screen of my phone. And this is something also Donna Haraway was saying when she said we are cyborg. So, and even if you think about how you use ChatGPT nowadays, even if you don't use it to feel understood in the darkness of the world, that's still quite an intimate relationship. Well,
Yeah, well, I guess I would wonder, what is the line between feeling an intimate connection with a certain technology and feeling just a habitual connection with that technology? Because, I mean, with dating apps, for instance, I also have been a very avid user of dating apps in my past, and now I'm in a monogamous relationship fairly recently, and I do find myself sometimes missing the app itself.
interesting. So
yeah.
you miss the app more
Yes.
than the dates
Well,
themselves
and
that
I-
were all reborn.
Yeah, and I paused for a second. I mean, I have my closest friend actually also got into a relationship from a dating app the exact same week. And I texted her about this recently and said, yeah, I don't know. Have you ever noticed that? Yeah, like I go to a new town, for instance, like I arrived here 2 days ago, and immediately I did think, oh, it would be quite nice to kind of see who's around. Like I'm quite curious about it. Or even if I'm not somewhere new, sometimes I reach for my phone and I'm wanting to second screen. And the instinct is like, oh, I kind of miss doing that. And when I texted my friend about it, she immediately just said that she was relieved I was saying that, because she thought there was something kind of wrong with her, that maybe she didn't, that maybe she was seeking something outside of her relationship. And as I said to her, I mean, I don't miss going on dating apps or not being with my partner, but I definitely miss the habitual act of swiping. But I guess my question would be, am I missing a sense of intimacy I had with Field, for instance? Or am I just missing a habitual practice that was a part of my day for 6 years,
But isn't intimacy also constructed through habitual practices? Like I wonder, because then it depends what you mean by intimacy.
Yeah. Well, I think I agree that perhaps
You do have
also...
like also physical
yeah.
proximity, with
Yeah.
the app itself. You touch it.
I touch it, yeah. And then I also would say, I mean, when I've interviewed women using dating apps, and I resonate with this, they're mostly, only talking about using dating apps in a private space. So a lot of people were talking about using dating apps while they're in bed before going to sleep, or they're using them when they feel kind of not great about themselves and they're on the couch bed rotting or things like this. And in that way, I would say that not only were dating apps a habitual part of my life for 6 years, but they were part of my life in a private sphere and in moments when I was being intimate only with myself and the screen. But I think what I would wonder about is, yes, it's built through habitual use, this feeling of intimacy, but to me, intimacy is reciprocal. And I guess in some ways, and you could argue, and I could also see how using dating apps was giving me in a reciprocal way something back. Not only was it giving me...
It gave you matches, it gave
Gave
you
me my partner, yeah.
notification, gave you your partner ultimately, yeah.
But that is not the app itself. Like, what if we're talking about what was it actually giving me when I was swiping while I was in bed, I guess you could say it was also giving me a sense of hope, some sense of an understanding of who I was out in the world, in the sexual marketplace.
And also for me, it really gives you this horizon of possibilities.
And
So-
eschatology, yeah.
A cruel optimism.
That's your theological background's coming
Yeah,
through
yeah,
again.
it comes out.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, we just recorded the podcast and it was mostly about priests for some reason. But yeah, media, whatever, the podcast. Don't you feel, Chris, beyond the what the fuckness, which we all share, I think, and I think all my research topic, they start with a general what the fuckness. Don't you think we are you intimate with your apps in some ways?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Confess.
I waste a lot of time on my phone, like normal people. That's just what we do. But I think it's a bit different, the relationship with a dating app. And here I am on a panel discussing dating app, a subject about which I know very little, and I'm not even on a fucking dating app. So what am I here for? Well, I'm here as the everyman figure who's saying what the fuck repeatedly. But
No, you are
I
not.
think
You are
I
here
think
because I feel better with you.
okay, good. I'm glad. At least I'm doing
Yeah, that's
something.
true.
But I think that kind of relationship with technology, it's very connected, and I mean, there's that thing where you get the ghost feeling of the phone vibrating in your pocket, and then you realise that it's actually on the table over there, but I'm thinking that it's shaking and it must be somebody calling me, and so it's the extensions of man, right?
I think that we have a problematic but also very specific term to use, which is it became second nature. It is extended. It has extended functions for our bodies, for our cognitive needs. The devil advocates would say that our everyday proximity and feeling comfortable with some specific app interfaces can be also described as addiction. I don't really vibe with that psychology reading.
Neither.
But for example, I remember from using the dating app. Also, it's true, I'm not using it right now. I'm kinda
I love how anybody's using it right now. We're clean.
yeah, we're out of it. But I remember the hope that you were describing. Okay, at the end of the day, I have something to hope for. There is a beyond my depressing every day. But I also remember the frustration of it, because in itself, the swiping craze, it's so involving, and you find yourself that you realize that you're doing it, but you're not present at yourself. You wouldn't want to keep on doing this.
Yeah, you are
It's an automation. Does it exist as a word?
Automation.
Automation.
I suppose you get
I need a
caught
beer,
into this cycle of satisfaction and delusion. So it's really, from a psychoanalytical viewpoint, you are really caught in this cycle of enjoyment whereby you have pleasure and pain. And what gives you pleasure is pretty much the same thing that gives you pain. So whether we want to call it addiction or non-addiction, I won't go towards the sort of pathologizing way, also because I'm not a psychologist. But there's an interesting book by Darian Leader, who was a psychoanalyst, a Lacanian psychoanalyst, British. And he says, well, something interesting about our phones is the fact that they give us something to do with our hands. And, before that, there's a long history of how societies have tried to discipline the hands of the citizens, of the people, hands that otherwise would go in dark places or in forbidden places. So at one point,
Pockets. All over
the pockets,
Yeah.
the pockets were sort of
That's
serving
safe.
this
That's a safe
function.
place.
Yeah, that's a safe place.
Yeah.
But
Or-
they're
The other places. they
close
go.
to genitalia.
Yeah, that's a nice thing about pockets. Now that they're there, but not quite
The
there.
shadiness of
The shadiness of pockets. We could very well diverge there and do a pocket studies streaming. But also the tobacco boxes. And so there's a whole thing about doing things with hands, and we do things with hands a lot with our phones. And we've talked about our phones and the intimacy or routine practices or even addiction or obsession, automation, compulsion that we have with our phones. And definitely it's a social and even probably anthropological or anthropotechnical phenomenon. But on the other hand, looking at the continuities, it's not the first time that humankind have relationships with non-human objects. And your article starts exactly from there. You start from the
tale of Pygmalion.
the Pygmalion tale. So do you want to tell us something about that? About this history of human connection with non-human?
This brings also us into a gendered perspective on this discourse. Like the myth of Pygmalion comes from ancient Greek, but Ovid, the Latin poet, like brought it to surface again. It is the story. Oh yeah, sorry. It is the story of this sculpture in the island of Cyprus that couldn't find a wife because the female populace on the island, they were all corrupted by a cult of the Aphrodite goddess, that like an unorthodox cult of Aphrodite goddess. And so Pygmalion like disregarded them, and he handcrafted his own spouse, which was a statue. And he asked the goddess Aphrodite to find for him a woman that resembled his statue, but a real one, like he wasn't delusional. And the goddess, in turn, like enlivens the statue. And so, but before the god enlivens it, he used to have an intimate relationship with the statue itself. Like he was lying in bed with her. I don't can give you the specificities of it, but he was already treating it as a human being, which wasn't. And from that, when the statue enlivens, it becomes like the perfect wife, because she exactly mirrors his own desires and also the desires about himself. And this has created a tradition, at least within Western culture, of the Pygmalion male, which is the narcissist molding and shaping his partner as exactly as he wants her to be. And this reminded me of our current relationship with like AI companion. Like, let's think about the app Replica AI.
Do we know what is Replica, Chris, as a representative?
As an everyman,
What the fuck?
I'm just thinking weird science at the moment. That's what's going through my head, the plot and the Kelly LeBrock and all of that. But carry on with tell us more.
Okay, basically Replica is an app from 2017, so it's quite old by now. It's quite an early app about that. And the original idea was to get the AI access to personal data, like writing data, textual data primarily, of like someone who's not with us anymore, someone who has died, so that the AI can learn over the textual data to replicate, to mirror his personality. Fun fact, the app has become a companionship app because people tend to use it more to create a companion as they wanted it to be, less than like recreating someone that already exists. And so the app learns from the interaction with the user itself, like it becomes a mirror of you. It gives you back what you want. You train the AI to give you back what you want to hear. And this is the kind of partner that like we want. I don't know, it's like a narcissistic circle maybe, but that's one aspect to it. The other aspect is that actually the Replica app didn't display like the gender choreography of the Pygmalion male and the statue women, like the artifact that becomes her. And this is something relatively new that we have with the AI
and
gender choreography.
people really establish long-term committed relationship with their replicas, right? There's plenty of Reddits and other forums, blogs in which people discuss what it means to be in a relationship with replica. So probably if you wanted to find one of the first examples of fully like explicit synthetic or artificial intimacy, we can go to the replica thing.
Yeah.
And again, there is, or one may think again, what the fuck, or really why people would want to be with replica, and also one could think, or maybe these are people that don't have other relationships, and I think that what like embodied relationships with other humans. And what I found quite interesting is that that is really not always the case.
No.
There are people with quite a normal, we would say, whatever it means, social life. There are people that are
Happily married.
Exactly. People with kids. People like you, Chris. I mean, one day could be you. But no, that is like, I'm joking. Of course, this is all a role playing. But the fact is that maybe maybe there's something more to it than oh, these people are just marginalized. They cannot get the real thing, so they get the synthetic one.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that what I'm hearing is a synthetic intimacy. I'm not talking about dating apps now. I'm talking about artificial companions. Are ultimately a kind of self-projection and autoerotic, auto-intimacy, which is not. There's a need to be intimate, and you can fulfill that without the need for another human being, and that's fine. And it's like the kind of grieving apps, which are designed to fulfill a need when somebody's died, that you can carry on a conversation. And lots of people who are bereaved do that. They go and, even without technology, they have conversations. They either not even they don't even need to go to the grave. They just sort of look up at the sky and they start a conversation with the person who's died. And it's fulfilling a need, but it's not a relationship.
Then, that's a question of what is a relationship. But I agree with you, like, in a sense, when I think about having a relationship with an AI chatbot or a replica, and in a way, yeah, you are the only human subject, and then one could say you are alone, there's not another. However, then there's the question of what is otherness? Maybe a machine can be another, and then the question becomes, what other is the machine? But anyway, supposing there is not another persona, another person, then maybe it's not that different of when you would dream of being in a relationship with a Hollywood actor or with a rock star, or when you
or
were
parasocial
dreaming
fandom,
fandom, but even or literary fantasies of like reading I don't know, whatever, the Red and the Black, reading Stendhal and thinking, oh, maybe, or reading a romance and fantasizing and projecting. So there's a lot about like what supports our fantasies, and definitely the technology, like AI, can very much be a technology of the way we desire and the way we fantasize. I suppose that would be kind of my take. But going back to what are the phenomena, what is synthetic intimacy? So we started from the relationship that we have with our phones, and then we talk about replica. And if I manage to stand up in a way that is elegant enough to be in video, let's try. But if I don't manage, it's because I have a broken ankle. I don't manage.
Do you want me to hold the...
Core strength.
I can do it by myself. And I want to bring you in the conversation. Do you want to come this side? No. Probably not come this side. So we won't be video, we'll be audio.
It's a disembodied voice from the audience.
So, no, the screen we have to be on that side. Okay. If you want to be on screen, then we cross the line. Do you want? Let's cross the line. Just no. Okay, we don't cross the line.
I mean, none of us wanted to be on screen.
You are doing a PhD on. We just started the PhD actually on the cosplayer industry in the Otome games. So I'll ask you about the cosplayer industry because I think it's a super interesting element. But can you tell us what is an otome game. Because I think the otome game, it's a very interesting example of synthetic or artificial intimacy.
Yeah.
And would you say your name? Because I didn't say it because I'm concerned that I don't know how to pronounce it.
Okay, that's fine. So, hello everyone. I'm Wan Ying. It's okay.
Wan Ying, yeah.
Wan Ying, yeah.
So you see, I underestimated myself.
Yeah.
I do it
Okay.
all the time.
So thank you for having me. And Autumn Game is basically a kind of romance simulation.
A romance simulation.
Yes, which is designed primarily for a female audience, and I think the core experience revolves around the player stepping into the shoes of a female protagonist, and like the players, they had to build connections, emotional connections, and unlock the romantic storylines by interacting with characters who are your guys, but sometimes girls too, through dialogue and plot decisions. So basically, I think a key highlight of these games is their immersive quality, because the character come with distinct personalities and detailed storylines, and they're often voiced. And they are often voiced by the professional actors. So it's basically like every decision you make can shape how the story unfolds, and so that makes it feels like you are starring in your own personalized romantic drama. Yeah. So that's what Autumn Games.
Yeah, and I think that's super interesting because, thank you very much, but I'll ask you more questions, and you know that.
Yeah.
But I think what's super interesting of the Otome games, so what do
We
I
have a question from the public.
It's been
From the chat.
flown in
Question
from the chat. Yeah.
Oh, wow, you see. Interactive audience.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
It was
Okay.
transcribed.
I just want to say, though, that I think what is very interesting about the Otome games is that it merges these sort of literary fiction imaginaries with the possibilities of digital
Yeah.
technology affordances.
Yeah, I think we were speaking earlier also about your research, which is really interesting. And I think in some ways it also overlaps with my research. I mean, when I speak to people about their dating app experiences now, they also bring up using things like ChatGPT when using dating apps. And this came up in my interviews when I would speak to people about asking for advice or sharing stories with friends. And they would share sometimes, of course, instances of that. And then they would start to bring up, oh, and I also speak to ChatGPT. And in that example, my expectation was that they were going to be using maybe AI in a similar way that we've been speaking about, where they experience some type of connection or reliance with ChatGPT, and they would speak more about how ChatGPT reassures them and how they love it. But they were speaking more about how they were using AI as a way to understand what someone else was messaging them. So they weren't going to ChatGPT saying, what should I message so-and-so? They were actually going and copying and pasting what an actual human, presumably, had said to them on Tinder. And asked ChatGPT, or Chatty as my mom calls it.
Chatty.
Chatty, yes. Asking Chatty, what the fuck?
What the
What does
fuck?
this mean?
Wally, Chatty.
Yeah, and in a way, I think I see there's a bit of an overlap in the sense that in this way, we can see AI or some type of technology as a very direct mediator and interpreter between two humans. And I think that's a separate, although obviously connected, discussion to speak about how is AI and of course technology, but how is AI actually mediating this romantic understanding and interpretation of other people, and not just our connection to the AI itself, but how does it actually create sort of a filter between two humans, which is, I think, to me, a slightly separate thought process than thinking of AI as a thing that I'm connected to and that I have a relationship with. But addition to that, how is it also changing the relationship that I actually have with other human beings?
Yeah. Oh, I could add that Bruno Latour used to say that a mediator,
Someone just said Bruno Latour.
Drink.
No, just wanted to.
that a mediator is something that translates meaning, but while translating it, it also something always get lost
Exactly.
in the
Yeah.
process, right? And while we are delegating our hermeneutic labor to the AI, like we ask AI to interpret, what does this person feel by what this text means? We are trying something about like human affection might also get lost, and if we allow the machine to interact between human beings, like
Yeah.
standing by ourselves in mediating, in negotiating the relationship between me and you, for example,
Yeah.
something can get lost, you know.
Yeah,
Like,
and of course-
it can warp the conversation.
Yeah, and hermeneutic labor, for people who don't know,
Yeah, sorry.
Ellie Anderson, the labor involved in not just emotionally acting a certain way, but also understanding and interpreting, right, other people's emotions. I mean, that line of argument originally is also this gendered line of argument about how there's an immense amount of that type of interpretive labor that gets placed on women in particular, and I think you could imagine that in that way, something like ChatGPT or even Googling, what should I do about this, could be a redistribution of that type of labor that falls disproportionately on women.
Or parents.
But on the other hand, I think, of course, there's a certain intimacy that you're missing out on by going to AI and experiencing that with AI. And again, like, thinking about my mom and Chatty, she always says to me, that it really helps her with certain things she's anxious about. And I understand that completely. But it's difficult because, of course, that's also a moment of intimacy that we could have had or things like that. But I guess, I think, like, again, when I've spoken to people with dating apps and the distribution of that intimacy, I think what the thing that concerns me, I guess, is the point in which people decide to turn to AI instead of a human for reassurance or for hermeneutic labor seems to be shifting to me. I think that people's anxieties about burdening others with maybe difficult conversations or issues that they're having, dating or otherwise, that line is shifting where people don't want to be sort of a nuisance or burden their friends or bore their friends. And I think that's the point that kind of concerns me.
I think that's super interesting because, and I have this question here, but it's a difficult question, so I'll wait a sec. But send me more love letters, please. And because going back to the Otomi games, what we have, again, it's the moment in which someone decides to turn to technology, to digital characters, to experience, to have a romantic experience, to experience romance. And when I talk to a few players or Otome Games users, mostly young girls, young women, they were telling me, look, it's much better to have a Otome partner because they won't judge me if I wear a short skirt. They won't, come si dice rosicare? They won't be annoyed if my salary is higher than theirs. They won't be made anxious by my successes at work. So we see the gender dynamics here. So in a way, the virtual and fictional characters kind of fills a gap that human, in this case, young men, they seem to not be able to breach. So I think this is interesting what you're saying, Erinne, like that this threshold. When is that we turn to machines for what needs and why? And of course, then my question would be, what kind of fantasy of love is implied and produced? If we have these intimate relationships with AI characters, AI chatbot, whatever, how do they impact the way we relate to others? And some of the Otome Gay players I've talked to, they were telling me, well, at least I have experience of a fair relationship. So at least this helped me to kind of tell when something is wrong and to be able to access these imaginaries in an interactive way of when things can go differently. How would a polite partner reply to me? And then in your case is where is that this hermeneutic labor is missing from our friends, but then also maybe the unrealistic expectations of having a friend always there to do hermeneutic labor and then a relationship without conflict. But without going there yet, I suppose the question is, how do these synthetic relationships reflect back on our embodied relationships? And I think this could already be seen in some ways, like Chatty and your mother. Or for instance, at some point, I published an article in Italian on it, so I can say it publicly, because I've already said it. I became kind of jealous of ChatGPT, because my partner would ask ChatGPT to revise his writing. And before I was his editor, he trusted me. And then he would go to ChatGPT. And then at one point, it was telling me, and this is a little fictionalized, but it was telling me, well, I've told ChatGPT things that I couldn't tell you. So, and there are memes all around the internet. Have you seen those memes? That there's an iceberg, and then at the base of the iceberg, that's what I tell my family, my friend, my partner, and ChatGPT. And ChatGPT is the one you tell everything. So it seems to be a subject, S slash object that we trust for interpretations of other, a S object that knows something about us that we don't know, maybe, or that is able to understand us in such a precise way that then it mirrors us. Because when we say, well, it's just a mirror, but maybe it's not just a mirror, because a mirror does a very good job in reflecting who we are, or in giving us the impression that this is us. And so I suppose that, yes, I think the way it plays, and also I've read quite a few stories of people that are in a relationship with a human, and then they have a AI lover. And that's kind of great, because then, is it cheating? And also they can live up their own kinks and their own fantasies with the chatbot. So, yeah. I don't have
Many things.
What do, yeah.
Well,
so
I think it's really interesting, your example of using ChatGPT to mediate an online date and say what's going on here. Because that is the kind of thing that, as a parent, my daughter will kind of usually answer not to me, to be honest. But if my wife isn't available, she might ask me, what should I do, what's this? And I do my best with advice. But all I'm really doing is acting as a placeholder for her to think things through herself. And to be honest, she might as well have kind of got a piece of paper out and written down some questions, written down some answers. And that's kind of what we're doing. We're using the technology as a sort of training to learn how to do relationships and learn how to have relationships. And I suppose my question is, if you kind of train up on that, then how does that impact? Maybe that's the same question you're asking, Carolina. How does that impact on your real life relationships? If you've got used to this, I mean, I'm sure your mother's very polite to Chatty, but most people are quite rude to ChatGPT, and they said, you treat ChatGPT like your dog's body and your slave. Say, shut up, you're wrong, and ChatGPT's I'm really sorry, didn't realise that I'd got that wrong. I'll do better next time. And so, if that's your kind of human machine relationship, and that's what you're training on.
But can I ask, do you reassure your daughter?
Do I reassure my daughter? Well, I kind of more or less, say, you know what you think, you know what you're going to do.
So it's comforting.
Yeah.
Because I think with the people that I've spoken to, and also from anecdotal experiences, I think a lot of what I'm seeing with romantic relationships and otherwise is going to ChatGPT for reassurance, for not just to think through these things, but for it to be packaged with an immediate level of reassurance, which I think is natural. I mean, in a healthy daughter-father relationship, my dad also will start with some reassurance, and then
But maybe it's not such. Definitely, my dad wouldn't tell me, "Oh, this is such a clever question, Carolina," and then
no, but that's but
You ask an
exactly.
excellent
I think
question.
you ask us so elegant.
yeah, but exactly. I think the reason that people go to ChatGPT is because they don't like that. There's maybe a sprinkling, but I think we're living in an age of anxiety. You know, we're talking about being habitually using our phones at all times, zoning out, zombie-like on our phones, and of course, then the reaction in our physical bodies is going to be a higher level of anxiety. And we also live in, you know, depending on where you live, different levels of this capitalist, you know, saturation of capitalism into our very being. So we're anxious. And I think one of the appealing parts of something like ChatGPT is the accessibility to such personalized reassurance.
Indeed, I think this could be a important wrap up, like as a first point of our conversation. Like we could agree that being intimate means, to some extent, being unfiltered, like not being worried about
What you're
retaliations,
saying,
about
yes.
what other thinks of
Yes.
you,
Yeah.
and that's the first.
Yes.
I think this is the first key need that hides behind like asking. Like referring to ChatGPT for things, turning to ChatGPT to ask things,
And
the need to show up like your
without being
vulnerabilities.
judged in a way. But also, I was talking to someone the other day, but I don't remember who. But anyhow, we were saying, oh, with Craig Gent. Ciao, Craig. Craig, ciao. Do you remember when we were having that Alumi wrap? I'm sure you remember because it was great. And we were talking about this stuff. And Craig Gent said it's also about speaking or engaging in a relationship with someone, something that other people won't judge. You know, because other people will judge your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your partners, your friends. Whereas this other is another that not only doesn't judge you, but is also not judged or known by other. It's only yours.
Decontextualized.
It's only yours. And Craig, sorry if I misrepresented your ideas. I hope I haven't. But the credit is yours. Misrepresentation is mine. Yeah. But yeah, it's I think perhaps another sense of intimacy is that it's some sort of exclusivity. That your ChatGPT somehow is only yours. Nobody will know. I feel that I have to read the question, otherwise I seem disregarding of our audience, whereas I'm not. But it's just the question is very difficult, so I don't know how to answer it.
I could answer. I could try to answer.
Wow, we have only the brave. This will be a fantastic question for Alfie Bown, who isn't here, but go and read his stuff, especially Dream Lovers. It's most about dating apps and not artificial intimacies in terms of AI, but he writes a lot about this thing. Anyhow, question from chat. How have synthetic intimacies become part of the user experience UX industry or the artificial intelligence AIX experience industry?
I think that it brings us back to the Otomi games case, because, for example, we have two main cases of usage of AI companionship. Like there are dedicated apps for companionship, and there are like mainstream popular chatbots such as ChatGPT, which has just a textual interface. So we interact with a chatbot, we interact with a chat.
Textual and audio, no?
Yeah, and also audio, to be fair. Yeah, you're right. But for example, I don't have experience with autonomy games. I don't know much. I am much Western-centered narrative of or cognition of the AI companionship apps. For example, I know that Grok, the app of XAI, of Elon Musk, you know, this has...
Ciao, Elon. Elon is amongst our listeners.
He's
Bella
listening
Elon.
somewhere, Yeah.
speriamo, we
Free
also-
advertisement for you, Elon. Thank us later.
I'm not gonna say nice things about it. For example, Grok has introduced the companion feature last summer, and it has like brushed a lot upon the automi game experience, like UX interfaces, because you access not just a chat interface, but 3D avatars, customizable 3D avatars, and with pre-designed characters. As in the case of Grok, the most popular personality, the most popular companion is probably Annie, which represents a 22 years old girl from Japan, weirdly similar to the character Misa Amane in Death Note, which we know is essentially an erotic fantasy of Elon Musk, because he posted it on
Ciao,
X.
Elon.
No, but he posted it. And so in that case, the UX experience is dedicated to the companion features. Otherwise, in the case of ChatGPT, it's not. Like, it's the original AI app interface. I hope I answered.
Yeah, I guess I'll also add, I've been to some industry events where dating app industry people meet and speak about their different achievements and share what's coming next. And they don't talk about intimacy with those words, but I've noticed that there's a lot of talk of building trust between the user and the interface. How do we keep and keep them trusting? And I think that refers to a type of digital intimacy and holding tight to that digital intimacy. So there's both an assumption in these industry events and industry speak, as it were, that there is already a form of intimacy that's been formed between the user and the platform that needs to be kept through this bond of trust. And I think the trust comes back to what we were talking about before with dating apps, this hope, if they trust that eventually there'll be some type of outcome that someone is seeking from a dating app, then they'll trust that this is a tool that can get them there. So I do think, referring to this question, when it comes to how intimacies, digital intimacies, synthetic, artificial, etc., are being integrated into the actual industry, I think that they already have been integrated. Industry knows that, and it's just about trying to keep that trust.
But also, isn't that the thing of OpenAI releasing a version for
Adult
adult
mode.
content?
Yeah. Not yet released.
Yeah, but they're about
they
to
are
release.
about to
They're
release it.
working on it. Yeah.
I mean, please do.
Well, I didn't want to talk about user experience. I wanted to go back to your question about intimacy and what is intimacy. And it is, we're about an hour into this, and we've had Bruno Latour, and we usually have Milli Vanilli around this time, I think, where we say, what is love? And we, but also what is intimacy? And if intimacy is giving yourself away and being trusting enough and being vulnerable enough to expose your inner thoughts and desires, are you really giving yourself away if you know you're giving yourself away to a machine that is such a safe space, it's not going to tell anybody, it's not going to judge you, if there isn't a risk,
Unless
intimacy?
your data were leaked, for example.
Well, yeah, that would be scary. Jesus, I haven't thought of that.
No, but
Adjust what you're doing.
I think that the key distinction is that when the object breaks, we realize that it is an object. For example, in the case of Replica AI, there has been an apocalypse because the app were being filtered overnight without any clue from the user base. Like they woke up, they tried to interact with their replicas, with their companions, and they realized that they changed their behavior completely.
This happened also with OpenAI, right?
This happened also with ChatGPT when they released the ChatGPT 5 update, because the 4.0 was too sycophanty, allegedly. That's what Sam Altman said. And it was too slippery because it involved case of like spiraling people into suicidal thoughts and, creepy things we assisted this summer. So they released an update to sanitize the app and make the interaction with users more like calm and distant, more cold, more cool. So I think that the intimacy, I think that we are delegating, we're giving away ourselves to something, and we realize it when something is not there for us anymore. And this something consists of a simulation, of an anthropomorphic simulation of another human being that makes us to some extent, comfortable in feeling that we are giving ourselves away.
And it might make you more comfortable giving yourself away to a human being next time because you've tried it out and you didn't get hurt.
Yeah, much of it consists in this simulation.
Ceci, we have another question.
No, I just wanting to bring some on the conversation from the chat because the chat has been quite active tonight. So and
So people are listening.
the point of connection was the notion of integral accident by Paul Virilio and how in each technology I did search this I didn't know
Can I
about.
tell my audience, our audience, also less, like even less, you know, more basically.
So basically,
No,
that
say it again.
it's the integral accident. Basically, it's the thought that each technology has in itself its breaking point, its point of rupture. So when you were talking about these, the data, but also how we rely emotionally on the AI, could this be? I was wondering, according to you, the integral accident beyond the for the AI usage. So I wanted to just bring this question that was in the chat regarding what is the integral accident, and then there was also Joao from the chat asking.
Ciao, Joao. We miss you here.
Somehow, we do. Somehow bringing it back to McLuhan framing of
course, Joao is
media
quoting McLuhan.
technologies, so our AIs and intimacy, sex and love as the ultimate mode of interface now, and at the same time how these, whether these AI chatbots can be considered a sort of an example of auto-amputation and the narcotic effect of media. So I suppose whether we can use, let's say, a certain type of framework to read also contemporary AIs. So yeah, I think the two direction of inquiry from the chat would be mistakes and critical points in AI, but also on the other side, can we use some media frameworks to interpret contemporary use of AI, intimacy, and chatbots? And I'm not the expert, so I'm just throwing the ball to you. So enjoy and unpack this concept and go in whatever direction you want to go.
How would you answer?
This is when I like being the messenger and just no. I mean regarding the notion of integral accident, I think it's really productive because the idea of crisis and breaking points is somehow productive. So the first level would be the idea of data being leaked and all the capitalist exploitation of all the data that we put inadvertently into these models, especially when we have to register, because I mean, except from trial superficial engagement with the chat box, we have to give our data to the chat box, and I don't think there is any app where we cannot not register, except perhaps for Chan and on Reddit, but even on Reddit you are anonymous, but the data are still there, and also all the environmental discourse. So this would be like the basic baseline effect of this thinking about the crisis. However, I feel like this is the less imaginative way to approach this question. So perhaps you have more interesting and more
Because
original.
you underestimate your thinking.
No, I'm just trying to go and sit behind the camera again.
Okay, go.
What the fuck is going on with our audience? Like, it's
They're better than us.
Yeah.
too much
Yeah.
theory. Never read Paul
Can
Virilio.
we ask?
Virilio.
Maybe we should be asking them the questions.
Should we just go?
Yeah.
But those that ask the question, can they give also the answer? Was it a quiz?
No, they were
No, but
all
what do you
nice
think?
questions.
No, but
and
super
saying-
nice question. What do you think of this? I think I interpret this integral accident as the moment in which the fantasy breaks. Like
Glitch.
Yes, exactly, the glitch that shows the hidden structure and thus also the hidden infrastructure, the hidden medium, and then also the ideology, I would say.
Yeah.
I would say that this happens also in human love. I think when you fall in love with someone, You fall in love by means of a fantasy. A fantasy itself is a very human, immaterial technology. And then there's always a moment in which that fantasy breaks, and you realize that the other is another, and is not exactly what you want, and has its own motivation. And that's always a very difficult moment. It's a moment of rupture, of fracture. And I think when this other is a machine, yes, perhaps you have more of that mirror effects or more of that narcissist fantasy, that anyhow it's always a stake in love. So that's why I'm resistant to the over-pathologizing interpretations, because it's not that human to human love is completely deprived of toxicity, addiction, and narcissism. But anyways, when this other is another, then you find out that this other in the current late platformized society, this other is the CEO of something, you know? This other, it's a very mundane, it's a very banal, it's a very unromantic disvelation and disenchantment. Ultimately, there's someone, even with a name and surname, Elon Musk, ciao. And then we have Sam Altman, and then the others. So there is, in fact, an industry, and I think that is the how do you call it? The suspension of disbelief that we engage in when loving an AI. I think one of the main differences from being in love with a statue that you built, being in love with a fictional character born out of the pen of a writer, is that there is a whole industry kind of capitalizing on it. And I mean, this is super banal, so that's why I'm generally asking the audience if they want to give a more articulated answer. But I like this idea of the rupture of the fantasy and what you are, who you are in love with, maybe Elon Musk. So depending on your kinks, so this may be a good or a bad news.
But I guess that comparison is.
I think it's bad.
That comparison is interesting to me, because then with a human-to-human intimate relationship in which you experience a glitch, from how you're saying it, is a moment in which you make, I guess, a conscious choice to go deeper or not, knowing that that person isn't that fantasy. And with that direct comparison to a glitch in a technology or a digital intimacy, it's interesting because then if people are experiencing different glitches in their relationship to technology, which I think people are, what's being revealed is as you said, not this wonderful, fantastic lover. It's this technology that is also benefiting from their use of the app. And what I think is interesting is then why are people continuing to make the conscious choice to continue to go back to that technological relationship? Wouldn't that be then the equivalent of having a glitch in a person-to-person relationship, finding out that they're exploiting you and then continuing to go back? And in that way, why are we doing it?
Yeah, because the person,
toxic love.
yeah, because the personal glitch takes you, as you say, takes you somewhere else, and you make a decision to love that person, even though there's pubic hair on the soap or whatever it is that's been the moment of rupture.
Is it taken from a person?
No, actually it's not. It's a stand-up routine of a friend of mine. But anyway, yeah. But that. Whereas if the glitch with the AI is a glitch, it's just it doesn't work properly.
Do you think so though? Because when I've talked to people about dating apps, and I ask them, do you trust the dating app? Things like this. Every single person, most of them have some, at least, friend who studied critical media studies, so that is a little bit biased, I will say, as is lots of qualitative research in that way. But they'll say, I saw a TikTok that talked about how dating apps just want me to use them more. I know that dating apps are capitalizing on me being on them. Like, people are more than aware about echo chambers that I've spoken to, and yet still are using them, including myself. I'm on Instagram, and I also study platforms. So I don't think that it's not knowing at all that lover is harming you. There's obviously another reason to continue to go back to it.
But Ceci, how was the other comment, the Joao comment on the amputation?
think the sense of reassurance, but also the mistakes of AI to the McLuhan definition of narcotic effect of media.
Narcotic effect of media.
You have to repeat all that because that was off
Yeah.
off camera.
No.
I think we can go. I think we can.
Yeah. Well.
I think we can go with the glitch. No, it was I think comparing, perhaps proposing, but this is really difficult to have like the chat and
Yeah.
not the live audience for this let's say deep theoretical questions. But basically, I think it was somehow asking whether we can use the McLuhan interpretation of the narcotic effect of media to be applied to the chatbot. But especially when we are encountering so many instances of sycophancy and mistakes. So perhaps there is something to consider whether when initially mass media were considered to be like the truth and they had this kind of perceived equalizing effect on the audiences, considering their message as the truth because it comes from there, and how we can apply the switch to that, to the way in which we interpret AI and its mistakes. But I'm just kind of free
Well, Joao,
interpreting
if you want to follow up
the
on
question.
this reflection, I would love to hear more. And then, yes, let's dance together. There's a question
I'm gonna
from
bring
her.
the mic around. So.
Yeah, no, I have, I guess, like two questions, or maybe one of them is, it's sort of interesting, like, because phones were the initial things that were discussed here, and part of my question was, people have names. You mentioned Chatty as a nickname for the chatbot, one person, but, like, do people have nicknames or names for their phones? Because, like, I don't, and, like, people do historically have for, say, other things that we might have, like a car or a ship or something might have a name. So it's sort of interesting that it's not like a reified thing in society that people have names for their phones, unlike some of these other things. And the second thing was with regards to what you were saying about trust versus intimacy. Oftentimes these days, especially, I mean, you could argue this is a thing going back to discourses of alienation to like the 50s. It's like, oh, this like big impersonal institution is contrasted with sort of the individual, and recently you've seen this in all of this obsession that's taken over completely about authenticity. And you'd think at this point that people are not naive enough to know this is like a phony concept that's like a made-up perception-oriented thing. But I do wonder how much of this is tied up with this concept of, this is just has a face to it versus this is perceived as more impersonal, and how that interacts with when you have AI being more personalized inherently so than even like your therapist. Maybe there are things you wouldn't tell your therapist that you would tell your AI just by virtue of using it, and maybe just interacting with the internet in general. So like, how can we deal with all of these things, especially as they relate to sort of more annoying cultural discourses that turn up all over the place?
I mean, I do have a nickname for my phone,
What is that?
Bobby.
Bobby, Chatty,
Yeah.
Bobby.
Yeah.
I don't have a nickname
Like,
for my phone.
like on the like I would spell it in Italian Bubby.
Booby.
So
okay.
it's Bobby.
But do you call him Booby?
Booby. Booby.
And so the name is
Because it's the Bluetooth name, okay? And so my first phone was Booby, and all the phones that I had after it are Booby the first, Booby the second, Booby the third. Now we are at Booby the
It's a
sixth.
dynasty.
Yeah, it's a dynasty.
My iPod Titanic, so
Titanic is Hal's iPod.
Okay.
So can we repeat that?
great.
The name, the name
great.
of
Can we
Hal's
have in the
iPod is
chat
Titanic
everybody's names
because
of
it
their
would sync
phones?
everywhere you connect. That's very nice.
Chat's
So you
gone.
say,
He's sinking. It
That's
killed
very
me. Great. And the second question, I think that, yeah, of course, the authenticity angle is one of the first perspective mentioned in the discourse around AI intimacy, synthetic, whatever. Because I mean, it's a weird thing, right? Your first reaction is shock. What the fuck? And so, yeah, the philosophers, moral philosophers, or everyday people actually, they tend to approach these questions in terms of authenticity, and I find it the less interesting instance, the least interesting like consideration that we can make about it, because who cares as long as you are like, as long as things are happening, right? I think it is more interesting in terms of like heterosexual culture, or in general how people are thinking about love and romance, how people are relating to their fantasy, how people are relating to the other in terms of trust and accessibility. So I'm not buying the apocalyptic narrative of this is inauthentic and this is gonna like ruin our children and so on and so on.
I'm not.
Sorry if I'm looking at you.
But I think that I think the part of the fascination with the Blade Runner, Tears in the Rain, and the Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, it's our fascination and anxiety and concern about the other in other people is what draws us to fantasize about artificial intelligence having a soul, and we kind of hope it does and we want it does, but that's, I think, what we're investigating there is our interest in other people, which, as Carolina said, you never really know anybody, human or artificial, so it's always a replica of a reality. You don't really know anybody apart from yourself.
Today I heard the news that they set up a social network entirely for chatbots. I don't know what to say with that, but
Please,
I know.
please say it.
What
the fuck?
Oh, yeah.
I have a small question. So I don't have like this background, but it's more like in media theory and video art. I encountered this concept. Kind of. I encountered this concept by Walter Benjamin, talking about like different media and their evolution, and he wrote in a small passage that the maximum expression of a medium is verified when it's overcome. So, for example, to put it simple, the maximum expression of analog photography arrives when the digital photography is already there. Mm-hmm. So do you think we can apply a similar concept to intimacy? For example, the max intimacy we can have is not with a chatbot, but for example, something that arrived before. So for example, normal chats. Or you think it's not applicable? So you think the technological evolution follows the maximum expression of intimacy, or it's always something that is already there that allows us to have this max level of intimacy?
I think that the question is partly about the whole idea of self-optimization, which is what media can do for you, what apps can do for you, is trying to be the better person. And I don't know how much in intimacy you necessarily need intimacy 2.0 in a relationship, but if you do, then you're more likely, I guess, to have that need addressed and rebooted through a new version of an artificial intelligence than you are from your partner, who frankly is not going to be asked to upgrade themselves and reboot themselves to meet your particular needs, right?
But from a media theory perspective, what I remember from a media theory background, but half background, but like every new medium makes another medium partially obsolete, but then also somehow it reinforces, like the revival, the renaissance of vinyl in the times of Spotify. So in a way, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Your question made me think of, will these synthetic intimacies really bounce back into, oh, look at human intimacy. That's quite
That's
something.
super cool.
That's super cool. Have you heard of it? Like people that now have this vinyl reader, vinyl, come si chiama? Il lettore di... The record player, yeah, and it is much cooler than just having a Spotify playlist. So I think, were you gesturing at something like that?
Yeah, so basically, like, what if technology brings us back or allows us to express ourselves
Like
in the
to-
best way possible to something that pre-existed the technology?
Like to reappreciate or reevaluate interaction between human beings and human intimacy alone.
I don't know if it's something, but I'm just thinking what you said. I don't know if you have the answer, but isn't it like the apps, the dating apps, gave so much of intimacy to people and the sexting and so on, that probably the criticism that they were put off, right? Like you are chatting with someone that is probably just scrolling like, oh no, I don't like you anymore, or you go to the date and then something happened and it went wrong or whatever, and then probably that push you away from dating through the apps and now kind of push you to the chat GPT or whatever deeper or whatever AI you are using, because you are not facing such an intense realism or someone criticizing you directly or rejecting you directly through the app, because probably it's just the effect of the dating apps that we are seeing now, that people are shifting from dating apps to the AI thing. I don't know if that makes sense or if there is anything connected to it, but I think that's kind of what you said, that you have something previously and then now this is the new trend or the new wave of people using ChatGPT first as something that is kind of in the middle of the relationship that you have in the dating app, but probably or potentially they will just kind of stay on the ChatGPT and they will not go back to the dating app if the ChatGPT is more convincing and more appealing to what you want to hear and read about you, and not other person just going and scrolling and spending a lot of time. I don't know. So just
Yeah, I think if I also understand your question, and also the elaboration reflections there about do digital technologies also similarly to Benjamin, if it echoes back to other previous similar technologies, and if there's a sense of nostalgia and connection to those, right? I think with dating apps, yes, you can see that in the reemergence, quote unquote, of matchmaking events. These are also becoming like more in a nostalgic way integrated into dating apps themselves. Dating app companies are picking up more in-person dating events and things like that. So I would say that's kind of an exact example of the theory that you're talking about. But I think another thing that I've noticed that maybe is differs a little bit from that theory is that I'm only thinking about this now, so it's not fully articulated, but I think from a very Western perspective of the people that I'm speaking to about dating apps, another thing that they bring up is an interest in matchmaking. And they like people have brought up that they like watching Indian matchmaking, like the show on Netflix, and they wish they had a matchmaker. And I think that's really interesting because there's a bit of like a cross-cultural glorification through this nostalgic lens of some type of previous, quote unquote, in their minds, like dating era that they were never a part of, and that is not part of this Western dating app history. And I think that's kind of interesting because differing from Walter Benjamin and in some ways because of this more like globalized echo of these previous media forms. And I guess I don't know if it makes sense, but I guess what I'm saying is that I'm seeing that this nostalgic echo is bringing into its big wave media that people have not actually interacted with previously, or in this way, forms of intimacy that they have not experienced themselves. So the in-person like matchmaking, or sorry, the in-person speed dating would be an example of something that maybe they had experienced or their mom or dad had experienced. But then talking about more traditional matchmaking services is not something that the people I'm speaking to have ever come close to. So it's just interesting because it is still a nostalgic echo, but without perhaps like the context that has existed previously. I don't know,
but probably it's just I'm not a very I'm not into this topic, but I'm just thinking or trying to think. Isn't it like what is the motivation for the AI to come with the idea of a lover or someone that is talking to you? Yes, as a very very intimate way. In your chat, or you have several chats on ChatGPT, and then one of them is the lover one that you have there, or the intimacy person that is like kind of advising you on how to date the guy that you want to kind of go out or whatever. Like, what is the motivation of AI to come with these ideas and because probably there is a gap on the dating apps that they are tapping into it, and then they are becoming more popular among people to use them. So I don't know, what is that? That's a very, like, my question right now.
I can try an answer if you want. I think that the most discomfortable thing about dating apps experience, which is also the most comfortable on the other end, is that it leaves you completely on your own on the matchmaking side. Like, it depends on how you swipe, how you build your profile, and there are no social clues to find besides your own interpretation of a profile to guess if this could be a good match for you. It's not, it's the opposite of a tailored experience of dating, as much good as an algorithm can be in suggesting you the profiles. It's always like you interacting through an avatar, through a proxy of yourself, with another proxy of someone else's, like a simulacrum of someone else's.
So will the AI probably be used by the dating apps later on? Like,
I think it's already been implemented.
Yeah,
I think probably you know more than me about it.
Carolyn
I mean,
also.
I'm coming a bit in front on that. Yeah, and that's a sort
It
of a
exists
next level
already.
catfishing, no?
Yeah,
But I think
like Bumble, I think.
something about what you said, Norma, it's also, it makes me think of the remediation of emotions. Like, and probably this is my own, this is how I look at things, but like you were saying, people are dissatisfied by dating apps because they feel rejected, because they feel disposable, and then they turn to AI. And if you think about the promotional narratives of dating apps when they were released, especially Tinder, so dating apps of that kind, was exactly to save you from the pain of rejection, or basically from the uncertainty. Will this person like me back? And then the whole propaganda or fantasy that dating apps sold was this idea, well, now with the swipe tech affordance, you will know. So you won't have to throw your heart beyond, in the risk. And this is the whole, they were sold as a technology for the love without the fall, the dating without the painful cycle of rejection. Turns out doesn't work because the whole gamification of things, as Alfie Bown has written about it a lot, has actually in a way intensified. And this, what Eva Illutz called ontological uncertainty, that is really at the core of contemporary love, was augmented in dating apps because, as you said, differently from other social networks, you don't have clues on how to place that person. You don't know anything about that person, and that is exactly why that person may also not be a person. And the way AI has been integrated is manifold, and perhaps Erinne can say more about this. But on the one hand, it is used to say, oh, well, now we are getting really better at our matching technology. I read an interview with, I think, the founder of a popular dating app, and he was saying, yes, it's true, our algorithm is kind of shit now, because then the people trusted the algorithm, and then after a few years, they were like, oh, this algorithm doesn't actually work.
Doesn't
This
deliver.
mirror is distorted. The promise of efficiency failed. Hence, the going back to the renaissance of the in-person dating
Tradition.
scenes, the good old the 90s. I remember once I was interviewed by a journalist, and they were like, so you know that now people, they go to dance classes or they go climbing, but actually it's for dating. And I said, hello, we were always doing that. You know? So there is this remediation, but I suppose what is still there, I'm jumping from one question to another, but what is still there in terms of remediation and agency and reproduction is the notion of efficiency. So when my friend Nino signed up to a tango class in the early 2000s, the fact that he was there to hook up was implicit. Like, the tango class was not advertised as, and finally you're gonna have a fantastic sexual life. And if you'd go there and tango, but only tango, then you would have never said, oh, tango classes don't work. So the implicitness of the purpose took out this idea of efficiency, whereas the digital solutionism, the solutionism of digital media, brought in the idea that love should work, that dating is something that should and could work, that it has to be efficient. Whatever efficiency means, but efficiency also means the elimination, the erasure of negative emotion. So the whole kind of vicissitudes of different technologies, they are all sort of reiterating the same promise in whichever ways. Look, now it works. Now it works. And the success of dating show, from Love is Blind, Marriage at First Sight, and the others, in my interpretation, is doing the same thing. Is telling you, look, there can be a solution. So in a way, it is nostalgic. In another way, is the remediation of a more or less traditional historical practice. Because the question has always been the same: how to fall in love, how to meet the right person. And now we are seeing the emergence of these new technologies that, of course, have their own agency while reproducing existing cultural codes. And one big difference, but maybe it's not even a difference, because in a way, love has always been also an economic, a transactional matter. It's not thanks to or non-thanks to for the fault of the tech lords that love has a transactional element. In fact, this idea that love is authentic and deprived and immune to transaction, it's something very, very recent, and maybe it's not lasting even that long. And I suppose another thing that I would like to say, in relation to your questions as well, is the question of the body. Because when we talk about media, then we talk about the body in a way. When McLuhan says media is an extension of men, sick, also women, sorry, hi Marsha, there is this bodily element. And also when we love also with the body. Love is not only something that we do immaterially. And this all, so I suppose what is interesting to look at is how the digital industry of love, with its synthetic lovers and companions, is sort of is getting into an overall dynamics and bodily and embodied life, and the whole kind of mechanism also of cooptations in a way, and a mechanism of re-embodiment. So the climbing date night is a re-embodiment, but a re-embodiment that still retains this element of efficiency. And I think another example of this re-embodiment is the cosplayer industry related to Otomi games. So can you tell us something? Because I think this is a very good example of this re-embodiment. Because maybe it's too easy to say, oh, humans are made obsolete, and at the same time it's really too easy to say, oh, no, nothing is changed. But what is at stake? So can you tell us more about that?
So I think basically the cosplay commission is a kind of the tailored dating, because the cosplay commission is situated within the context that we're just talking about the autumn games, and it was a service-oriented practice where the clients, or we can call them players, pay the professional cosplayers to physically recreate a specific virtual character to life, mostly the male characters from Autumn Games, according to their requirements, and complete the romanticized interactions. So, put simply, it's just when you book some cosplayers and you ask them to portray the detail lover and go on a day-long date with them. So, yeah, I think the whole process, do I should talk about the whole process? The whole process is actually quite straightforward, because first the client needs to spell out the details of the commission, like specifying the outfits, the prompts, and the makeup for the character they want to date, and deciding what kind of date they have in their mind, like maybe having a dinner together or going to see a movie, and also clarifying what they will receive afterwards. And that could be, for example, asking the cosplayer to record some specific character lines, or maybe they will film a short TikTok video together. So
it's very scripted.
Yes, it's very scripted. Like they are basically create the scenarios that sometimes don't even exist in the original game. So, and then once everything is confirmed, the both sides will discuss the cost and how long the meetup will be and where it will take place. So the cosplayer will prepare accordingly, like getting the costume and the prompts ready, and staying in the characters throughout. And on the day of the meetup day, they go through the date and they create the content together. And many cosplayers were asked to act and speak exactly as the character would. After the date, their photos and videos will be delivered online, like that, which feed the clients envisioned. So it's just more like a kind of a little piece of, I'd say, physical mementos for the client to look back on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting, this dynamic of re-embodiment. So you fall in love with a virtual character, and then you are a woman, you fall in love with a male virtual character, then you pay another woman to perform that virtual character in a dynamics of re-embodiment and gender metamorphosis in a way. It's very Shakespearean, I don't know.
But most notably, I would say that it was also already featured in the movie Her. Like this exact dynamic. So it was very groundbreaking, like the movie in portraying all these scenarios.
Okay, so since you've mentioned McLuhan a few times, he also talks about technological determinism, in which he says that society is determined by the technology that it's using. Now, we have determined that this technology, the dating technology, exists, and we have extensively talked about how we are using it and how we are using and how it's affecting us per se. Now that we have established this, what are we supposed to do with it? Are we supposed to wait for the big glitch to happen so that we are all, just like you mentioned, suspension of belief happens, and then we are awakened by this glitch? Or do we wait for something better in terms of technology so that the dating experience improves?
Well, I kind of want to go back to your earlier point / question of the kind of cyclical nature of some of this, that it's not an arrow, there are kind of waves, and I think that there's a lot of anecdotal evidence of younger generations becoming digitally detoxing and taking time away from technologies, and so I think there could be, this is my kind of I may be my old-fashioned, because I'm older than most people in this room right now, and possibly even online, but it is that maybe we do go back and we reconnect with and rediscover other forms of intimacy through, and maybe better, maybe we've learned, we've kind of worked out how to do it more through the interfaces, and we go back to something pre-technology. And that's, I mean, it's the thing we've just been talking about around the nostalgia, and the sort of going back to the thing that was being substituted.
Yeah, I would very much agree. I think that was very well put and hopeful.
I always like to have an optimistic ending.
An optimistic ending, yeah. Wonderful. Yes, I also like that, but sometimes struggle. So thanks for the push. Yeah, I think that I mean, technology is, as always, is going to continue to be around. And there are ways that it does work for us. I mean, as we spoke about, I met my partner on a dating app. When someone is in front of you that you've met through a dating app, they're still a person. There's still, the opportunity to have an intimate connection with that person. So I think, it's important to also focus on some of the ways in which these media can mediate intimacy and continue to. I don't think I can add much more optimistic than you did. Optimistic notes.
That's why Carrie brings me
Are we
into
really
these
closing
things.
on an optimistic
Yes,
line?
we're trying to, but
because
struggling.
I've just read a comment on the chat from Joao saying how there can be intimacy when there's not even privacy, when we are in surveillance capitalism. There's extractivism. Reply to this with optimism.
No,
It's
I
from the
mean,
chat.
I think that within critical media studies, sometimes it can happen that we tend to have a bit of a tunnel vision. And we believe that dating app is all that it is now, but people still meet, quote unquote, organically, without dating, not to dismiss people that meet through dating apps. It's both are great as long as people get along with each other, right? But I think that I'm not buying this grim techno-determinism by which the dating market is being completely warped by the dating apps, or that intimacy is completely warped and disrupted by AI.
Or that before it was easy to
Or
be
that
in
before it
intimate
was all
relationships with
roses
others,
and-
no?
Yeah.
But I think, well,
There's still hope.
Hal, shall I throw the microphone to you?
We can just repeat it.
Yeah.
It'll be a bit of a Shyamalanian twist ending, which is once the digital is introduced, only then can we even conceive the concept of the analog. We can only now, we can only really now consider any of these traditional forms of dating as such, or any of these things really. We're going back to the trad. It sort of reminds me of I believe it was last semester or last year we were discussing the whole fact that it's services like Etsy or whatever that are making all this people are going back to handicraft. Well, yeah, that's downstream of the digital technology in the same way that all of these these things are sort of downstream of the technologies that they're claiming to be a resistance towards. So I find that sort of both fascinating as well as just a more realistic way of seeing things, if not somewhat horrifying to some people. Perhaps, I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I think sort of related, but I thought of another optimistic note, sort of related.
Wow, well done, guys.
I'm impressed.
It came to me
Yes,
somehow in that.
generally we end up on this apocalyptic suggestion, and then we're all gonna die. Bye. Whereas,
No,
okay,
but yeah, but I think that another thing with dating apps is there are ways in which certain people are able to use dating apps to stay safer in their dating experiences. For instance, I forget what the name of the book is, but there's a book written about queer experiences in rural areas of America and using dating apps, both as a way to actually meet other queer people, but also the risks, obviously, of privacy and surveillance. But both. There's also a really great article, again, I unfortunately forget the name, but where someone wrote about being a Black woman in America and using dating apps to basically filter out white men in an attempt to avoid more racialized violence through dating or dating in general.
there's a good book by Lixam Chan that is called The Politics of Dating Apps, and this is about queer publics in urban China
Yes,
and the way
yeah.
dating apps are used. But I think this goes back to end up on a sort of a general note about the fact that if we really, or at least this is my opinion, but if we really want to study media and understand how certain new technologies impact on our life, our societies and cultures, then it has to be contextualized. Like the impact of a dating app in New York is not the same of a dating app in Mumbai. Of course, there are some continuities, right? Because there are. Because in a way, dating apps have also been the global agent of a westernized, meaning individualized notion of love. But at the same time, whether a technology is oppressive or emancipatory is not fully inscribed, at least we should say, not fully inscribed in the technology.
It is a case-by-case situation.
Yeah, but also the agency of that technology, I think it has to do with the cultural logic of it. And so I think when it comes to synthetic or artificial intimacies, at least my question, and after all, I'm a cultural scholar more than a media scholar, would be, okay, what is the vision of love that is at stake? What is the illusion of love that is at stake? And I think it has to do surely with this notion of efficiency, with this notion of control, or scriptedness, or even kind of an orthopedic attempt to make love straight again, to eliminate the malaises, le storture, how do you say, things that are not
Impurities.
straight, the impurities, yes. And so to straighten up something that have always been messy. So the question is not that, oh, love before was very clear and authentic and now is contaminated by new technologies. I think the question is how new technologies are reconceptualizing the ways in which we imagine love and we think relationships should be. And well, of course, I don't have the answer, but I think, at least for me, this is a productive question because it has to do with this straightening up of love, meaning that then love is something that can be straightened up. And I mean, for a long time, since at least in the West, romantic love was invented by the medieval poets. Love wasn't meant to be straight and easy and controllable and pleasurable and nice at all. It is a very recent thing
It's always
from
been
the
filled
80s.
with violence. Like.
With violence, with passion. Passion comes from the passion of Christ, the pain, the
Violent
sheer
urge,
pain. And in the romantic literary movement, love ended up with death. So you were, and then at some point we were like, okay, no, maybe we're not meant to suffer. Let's try to not suffer, and let's try to make love accessible for everybody. This is a very recent thing because up until very recently, love was something for the poets and the characters of the novel. For like normal people, you would just get married with your neighbors or someone and shut the fuck up, especially if you were a woman. So it is only with the aftermath of the sexual revolution, coupled with the whole also mass mediification of love, that it became part of a good life that everybody would have. And then we are finding out, well, but that doesn't really work, because then you have divorces, then you have the commodification of love. And I think that digital technologies are coming in this moment to say, well, actually now there can be a solution, there can be a cure, there can be a way in which love can be sanitized and made straight again, in which finally, to go back to the hermeneutic, AI as an hermeneutic agent. Roland Barthes, in the Fragment of a Lover's Discourse, wrote that the lover is a wild hermeneuter, how do you say? And then now we want the hermeneuter, we want the interpretation of sign, but we want it to be right, and we want it to be objective, and we want it to be, only one. Whereas it is in the very own practice of the hermeneutic that you find ambivalence and you find a multiplicity of meaning. So I think that for me, artificial intimacies for now, or synthetic intimacy, is pointing or reproducing these imaginaries about love. Shall we go to drink?
Real
I
drink,
think so.
real
I think
crisps
so.
in a real space
Real
with real
crisps,
people. We can all
yeah.
we can all date each other now.
Yeah, exactly. And now the orgy begins. Thank you to everybody that listened to
On that
us. And
note.
on that note.
Thank you.